Hello, everyone. The webinar will start in 1 minute. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Accelerate webinar series hosted by the Daniels College of Business Executive Education Department. I'm Camila Angelin, Assistant Director of Business Development, and I'll be your host today. The Accelerate webinar series is designed to help you accelerate your capacity to deliver results for your organization. Our webinar today will be about 25 minutes long, starting with a brief presentation from our faculty and then move into questions and answers at the end. To help us see your questions, please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to submit a question whenever you like, and we'll answer as many questions as possible at the end of the session. If we run out of time, we'll include an answer to your question in an email follow-up to you. One other housekeeping item we want to let you know is that this webinar does have live closed captions and a live transcript. These are not 100% accurate, but you can turn them on by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of the screen as well. Today, we're pleased to have Kellie Jenkins join us in our webinar. Kellie is a leadership coach, consultant, and an executive education faculty who teaches programs in many of our customized programs. She is passionate about working with professionals, especially women, who want to grow in their ability to lead in alignment with their values and unique strengths. Kellie is originally from Australia, but has lived and worked around the world and has traveled to many developing countries to scope and create transformational leadership programs. Today, Kellie joins us to teach simple strategies that will help us coach our people so that they can better engage, grow, and develop. Kellie, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Camilla. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be able to share with you some very practical and actionable strategies that can improve your effectiveness as a coach. So the concept of a leader as a coach has really evolved as a result of the rapidly, constantly changing environment that we find ourselves in, both in our organizations and in the world generally. And as leaders and managers, we can no longer have all of the answers all of the time. Things are just changing too fast. So as the quote from this HBR article says, we need to be able to lead in a way that supports and empowers employees to adapt to those changing circumstances themselves and to take ownership for their own growth, development, and ultimately their own success. And that's where coaching comes in. The International Coaching Federation conducted a global coaching study in 2020, and they found that the number of managers and leaders using coaching skills increased by almost 50% over the past 5 years. But even as far back as 2000, Daniel Goleman, in his research on the 6 essential leadership styles, found that the coaching approach to leadership has a positive impact on organizational culture, performance, and the bottom line. So what is coaching? The International Coaching Federation defines it like this: as partnering with clients or employees in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And for me, the most important part of this definition is in the partnering in a thought-provoking process. So coaching is collaborative. It means that hierarchical power dynamic between a manager and an employee really needs to be left at the door of a coaching conversation. You're not coming into this coaching conversation from a place of experience or even expertise. You're coming in as a thinking partner. So we have a concept in coaching that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, which means that they don't need us as coaches to fix them. Our role is to support them to find their own answers, to make their own choices, to be able to bring out their best. So how does that compare to other models of development that are commonly used in organizations? So if you're coming in as a mentor, you're coming in based on your experience. You're likely more senior, you've walked the path before, and you can help provide wisdom and guidance to the employee based on your experience. As a trainer, you're relying on your deep and specific expertise in order to be able to teach new skills and knowledge. And if we were to look at these two modalities through an analogy of, say, riding a bike, this is what it might look like. So the mentor has ridden the course before. They can tell you where the hills are, where the sharp turns are, but they can only tell you how they successfully navigated those challenges. The employee still has to work it out for themselves. If you're coming in as a trainer, you can share all of the experience and the expertise that you have around the bike, how to ride it more efficiently and effectively. But it's really up to the employee once they're out on the course to be able to put that into practice. Coaching, on the other hand, is more like this. It's like riding a tandem bike. The employee's in the front seat, you as the coach are in the rear, and you're there real time for the journey. And in biking terminology, you as the coach are the stoker, the employee is the captain. And it's the captain of the bike who's controlling the journey, the direction and the pace. We're really along for the ride. The stoker's role, though, is to provide the power up the hills. And what that means in our terms is that we're providing that extra support and assistance and power when the going gets tough. And it's that real-time support that really distinguishes coaching from mentoring and training. And that's not to say that mentoring and training don't have their place in organizations and employees' development journeys. They absolutely do. But what Daniel Goleman's research found was that coaching was more effective when it's related to the employee's personal development, rather than, say, addressing a performance-related work issue. And coaching is also more effective when the employee is there willingly, when they've got some sort of awareness around their areas for development and they're not resistant to that change. So what can you do to improve your critical coaching skills as a leader? Well, today I'm going to share 3 strategies around listening, asking powerful questions, and creating insight and action. So listening actively is a core competency of coaching according to the ICF. And you'll see that those words are listening actively, not the more well-known active listening. And the reason for that is I always associate active listening as this very kind of earnest demonstration that you're listening to the conversation. So you're told to lean in and to nod and smile, maybe even repeat back what the employee is saying. And the problem with that is that you are so focused on yourself, making sure that you make the appropriate sounds and movements, that you can't be in partnership with the employee. So this is what we call level 1 listening. So the awareness is on ourselves as the listener. We're focused on our thoughts, our feelings, our judgments, and we're most likely already responding to the employee in our head before they've even finished speaking. Level 2 listening, on the other hand, brings a sharp focus on the other person. So you're listening to everything that they're saying with a level of empathy. You're taking in their energy, the information that they're sharing with you. You're noticing the tone of voice, the pace of their speech, reacting to emotions that they're expressing. And when you're engaged in that way, you let go of your own agenda. And your contributions to the conversation as a result become much more spontaneous. Level 3 listening takes it a level further. You're taking in all of the information from the environment around you as well as from what's going on between you. So you're using all of your senses, you're tapping into your intuition. You're listening for what's not said as much as for what is said. And given that most of us are operating at level 1 most of the time, I'd encourage you to see if you can move to level 2, simply by leaving behind all of the distractions and becoming more fully present in the conversation. And you can do this by taking a moment before all of your coaching conversations to take a couple of deep breaths or even do a short meditation. And in that time, bring to mind the person that you'll be coaching and connect into what you know about them and what it is that you think they may have need from you in this conversation today. And then finally, set an intention for yourself. How do you want to show up in this conversation? And being present is not going to only help your listening skills, it's also going to help with our next strategy, asking more powerful questions. So what is a powerful question? Well, a powerful question really enables the employee to discover something new about themselves or the situation that they're in. So we're evoking some kind of personal exploration or reflection. And it's important to note that these questions are asked for the benefit of the employee. You're not asking it to hear the answer, you're asking it to enable the employee to do some deeper thinking, and more importantly, for them to hear the answer themselves. So you'll know that you've asked a powerful question because the employee is going to pause in thought. They're not able to rattle off an answer or a story to you straight away. They're going to need to think about it. And when they say, that's a great question, then you know you've really nailed it. So for the most part, powerful questions come simply from being present in the moment. But there are some things that you can do to change the nature of your questions to make them more powerful. So make sure that they come from a place of genuine curiosity. You're not information gathering here. Remember, you're partnering with the employee in their thinking. Make sure the questions are open-ended. It's not a closed yes or no question. So instead of asking, is this an effective strategy? You might ask, what makes this an effective strategy for you? A powerful question isn't leading. There's not a predefined answer that you have in your head that you're trying to get the employee to. And in fact, even if you think you know the answer to the question, ask it anyway, because you might be surprised at what you hear from the employee's perspective. The most powerful questions are often the simplest. My favorite powerful question is what else? As clear and succinct as that. Because what you're doing there is you're inviting the employee to think more deeply. They may have rattled off a list of options or questions or challenges. And by you asking what else, you're asking them to go just a little deeper in their thinking. And so what you're probably noticing is that a lot of these powerful questions start with a what or a how. Questions starting with an is are often closed or leading. And questions starting with a why can often make the employee feel defensive. So instead of asking, why did you do that? You might ask, what were you hoping would happen? The great news is that curiosity like this is a learned skill, and it simply takes practice. So the next time you're in conversation with your friends or your family, take notice of the quality of your questions and see if you can turn some of those closed or leading questions into more open what and how questions. I was surprised by the quality of my conversations with my daughter after school by simply employing this practice. And our third and final strategy, which I think is actually the most critical, is the way that you close out the coaching conversation. We're trying to create a shift for the employee in either their thinking or their behavior that's going to move them forward and result in a different outcome. And the learning comes from the insights that have been generated by your powerful questions. So as you begin to wrap up the coaching conversation, invite the employee to identify what they've learned. What are you taking away from this conversation? What do you see now that you didn't see before? What new awareness do you have? Because this insight informs the action that they're going to take to generate the different result. So always follow that insight question with a question that evokes a commitment from the employee. What are you going to do differently as a result of this new awareness? And remember that action can take many forms. It doesn't need to be achieving a specific goal. It can be as simple as looking at a situation from a new perspective, or noticing your thoughts and behaviors in order to be able to recognize patterns. But even a small action is going to create a sustainable learning loop, because the employee is going to generate more insight from the action that they've taken, leading to a different outcome. And as a bonus, you should always encourage the employee to think about what support do they need to be successful in their commitment to themselves? What accountability measures can they put in place? And this is a great opportunity for you as a leader to offer yourself up as a resource, if that's appropriate. And so the most effective way to conclude a coaching conversation is to ask some variation on these three questions. What are you taking away from the conversation? What are you going to do as a result? And what do you need to be successful in this commitment to yourself? So that really wraps us up today. We've taken a look at why coaching is such an important skill in this current, constantly, rapidly changing environment. We've defined coaching as a partnering in a thought-provoking process, and shown how that's different to both mentoring and training, and when it's most effective to use each of those modalities. And finally, I've left you with 3 practical strategies that you can put into place in your very next conversation. Get centered and grounded to be able to listen more fully and deeply. Be genuinely curious and more open in your questions, using what and how. And then finally, make sure that you help the employee to really see what it is they've learned and to take some kind of commitment to change their action moving forward.
Kellie, thank you so much for this amazing content. I feel like I'm already taking some of this to my day-to-day life and conducting a few conversations differently now. So for everyone that's home, this is your time to send questions. We're going to start with 2 questions. And the first one is, I just want to understand, how much time does a supervisor have to allot for coaching? Is it over several months? Is it years? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing like executive coaching, they're generally, 1-hour sessions, and the engagement can last for a long period of time. But the reality is that you can get an effective outcome from a coaching conversation in as small as 15 or 20 minutes. So it's not about the length of time, it is about the power of the questions you're asking and the insights that you're generating as a result.
Awesome. And then one other thing that I have in mind is, what if you have a supervisor, a boss that is not doing any of this that you taught us today? How can you gently help guide them so that you can have better conversations with him or her?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer lies in going back to that definition of coaching as a thought-provoking process. So really, as an employee, what you're trying to do is have someone to kind of hold the space for you while you process your own thoughts. And so even if your supervisor or manager is not effectively asking questions, if you can just invite them into a conversation in which you can share your own thoughts, you're not necessarily looking for an answer or a solution. In fact, you're really not. You just want to be able to speak out loud, maybe have somebody reflect back to you what they're hearing, and for you to hear it in a different way. And maybe that's enough to shift you and move you forward.
Yeah, perfect. And we got a great question from our attendees, and it asked, do you need to be in a supervisor role to be a coach, or does coaching work in parallel work structures?
Yeah, I mean, because as we said right up front, the hierarchical power dynamic is really, we're trying to take that out of coaching. So it definitely doesn't need to exist for a coaching conversation to happen. You really just need a willing listener, someone who is ready to hold that space for you while you think. It generally doesn't work in personal relationships. I wouldn't encourage you to coach your family. It's not a recipe for success. But certainly anywhere else within the work structure, it doesn't need to be a hierarchical relationship for coaching to work.
Perfect. I love what you said. Let's not do that with our families, because it won't work. But again, Kellie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
And to our participants, thank you for taking the time to join us today. If you liked what Kellie shared, you have to learn more about the Denver Leadership Experience Program. where we learn a lot more about coaching for high performance. DLX is our award-winning leadership class designed for senior leaders. And according to our participants, you have never seen anything like this in the leadership training world. Our next DLX session is coming up in December, and you can learn more about that on our website, or you can reach out to me directly. We will be back on Thursday, October 7th, with Jed Somerton to talk about how you can power your business strategy with data analytics. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We hope you gain new insight that will accelerate your impact in your community, your organization, and the world. From the University of Denver Daniels College of Business Executive Education Department, we look forward to seeing you again on the Accelerate webinar series. Thank you, everyone.